The night in Atlanta was electric, but it wasn't the music or the glittering skyline that had people talking. It was the fight that erupted between Yandi and Rashida. A confrontation so raw and so personal that fans couldn't stop replaying it backstage. The walls themselves seemed to vibrate with tension as the two women faced each other with years of resentment bubbling to the surface. For weeks, whispers had been floating across social media, pointing to cracks in their friendship, but no one, not even producers, expected the kind of emotional explosion that unfolded. And when it happened, the fallout stretched far beyond that room. It became a storm that Atlanta, and the love and hip-hop universe, would not forget. Yandi stood stiff, her jaw tight, her eyes locked on Rashida with a glare that cut sharper than any blade. She wasn't just angry. She was broken, betrayed, and exhausted from carrying pain that she thought she had shared in confidence. "You call yourself my friend," she hissed, her voice trembling with fury. "But everything I told you in trust found its way to blogs and podcasts. Tell me, who else knew those things but you?" Her words weren't just accusations, they were knives. And the room full of people could feel each one slice through the thin veil of civility holding them together. Rashida shifted uneasily, clutching her phone in one hand like it could shield her from the storm. She tried to keep her composure, but her cheeks burned red. "I never betrayed you," she snapped back. "People twist words. People repeat things. That's not on me." But her voice cracked, betraying the confidence she tried to project. For the first time, the audience saw not just the fashionable businesswoman, but a woman cornered, gasping for a defense that even she knew was thin, standing between them. Spice looked like someone watching a car crash in slow motion, to look away but desperate to stop it. "Y'all, this is not the time," she tried, raising her hands. "The cameras are rolling. Everyone's watching." But her pleas fell flat, drowned out by the rising heat of betrayal. Phones were out, fans in the background whispered, their cameras already recording what they knew would become one of the most viral moments of the season. Hashtags were forming in their minds. Hashtag YANDIVs, RASHIDA. Hashtag Love and Hip Hop Chaos. Hashtag Backstage Betrayal. And then Kirk stepped in, making everything worse. "Both of y'all need to calm down," he said, raising his voice just enough to be heard. But his presence only poured gasoline on the fire. Yandi turned on him, eyes blazing. "You got your own mess, Kirk. Don't hide behind her. Handle your own marriage before you step in mine." The crowd gasped. That one line turned an argument between two women into a scandal that threatened to pull the whole Frost marriage back into the spotlight. And then, as if fate wanted the flames to grow hotter, someone in the crowd shouted one name that changed everything. Jasmine. The moment the word left their lips, the room froze. Cameras zoomed in. Yandy's lips curled into a bitter smile. "Exactly. That's what I've been saying. She's closer to Jasmine than anybody realizes. Vacations, dinners, little meets like nothing ever happened. And I'm supposed to believe she never betrayed me. Please." Rashida's face turned crimson, her voice rising into a scream that rattled the air. "Don't you dare bring Jasmine into this. You don't know what I've had to do, the decisions I've had to make. You have no right." The mention of Jasmine shifted the argument from betrayal of friendship to betrayal of marriage, dragging old wounds back into the open. Spice's mouth dropped open, her voice hushed but piercing. "Wait, so Yandy's not making it up? You and Jasmine are really that close?" The room erupted with gasps, murmurs, and hurried whispers. Every fan with a phone knew this clip would explode across the internet. They didn't just see a fight, they saw a crack in the foundation of one of Love and Hip Hop's longest-standing couples. As the shouts grew louder, the producers huddled in the corner. They whispered frantically about legalities, editing, and damage control, but none of it mattered. The cameras were rolling, the internet was already buzzing, and the story was out of their hands. For them, this wasn't just a fight. It was ratings gold, but it was also poison, the kind that could destroy reputations, friendships, and maybe even the show itself. The fallout from the confrontation refused to die down. Even after the shouting stopped, the walls backstage still seemed to vibrate with the echoes of Yandi and Rashida's voices. The crew moved nervously around the room, whispering to each other while cameras caught every trembling lip, every angry glance, every tear someone tried to hide. For the world outside, this was pure entertainment, but for those inside, it was destruction unfolding in real time. Rashida sat in a corner, her chest heaving, her eyes red but dry. She wouldn't let herself cry, not here, not in front of everyone. To cry now would mean weakness, and she was determined to stand strong even as her world tilted beneath her. Beside her, Kirk hovered awkwardly, torn between reaching for her hand and keeping his distance. He knew every camera was ready to catch the smallest gesture. One squeeze of her hand could look like reconciliation. One step back could look like abandonment. And right now, neither was safe. On the other side of the room, Yandy paced like a storm, waiting to break again. She kept pulling out her phone, scrolling through messages that were already flooding in. Fans had posted clips within seconds, and the internet was ablaze with hashtags, #TeamYandi. One read, while another trended just as fast, #RASHIDA truth. The public had already split into camps, each one ready to fight for their favorite, and every minute made the storm bigger. Spice leaned against the wall, watching with a mix of sadness and frustration. She had seen fights before. She had been in fights before, but this one felt different. This wasn't about a misunderstanding or a petty rumor, this was about loyalty, betrayal, and years of trust turned to ash. She closed her eyes for a moment, whispering to herself, "This ain't gonna end well." And then, like gasoline on fire, another voice chimed in from the corner. A production assistant, young and nervous, muttered under their breath but loud enough for everyone to hear, "What about Mendici?" The room froze. All eyes turned. Yandy stopped pacing, her phone slipping slightly from her hand. Her face hardened instantly. "What about him?" she snapped, her voice sharp as glass. The assistant stammered, I heard things. That maybe this fight ain't just about friendship. That maybe it's about what's been happening behind the scenes with him." The words cut the air like a blade. Fans who caught the moment on camera gasped, realizing the fight had just taken another dangerous turn. Now it wasn't just about Yandi and Rashida, it was about Mendici, the man whose name had already been tangled in too many rumors. Rashida smirked bitterly, her voice low but steady. "You really want to do this, Yandy? You want to sit here and act like your man is spotless? Because if we're airing dirty laundry, trust me, yours is piled higher than mine." The crowd erupted in murmurs. Yandy's face flushed, her eyes blazing with a fury that threatened to consume her. "Don't you dare," she growled. "Don't you even dare try to drag him into this when you know damn well your marriage been on life support since the day Jasmine showed up." The words were a bomb, detonating in the middle of the room. Kirk's face twisted in anger, his fists clenching as he stepped forward. "Keep my wife's name out your mouth," he shouted, his voice echoing against the walls. But Yandy didn't flinch. She turned her glare on him, her voice cutting deeper. "Then keep your wife from stabbing people in the back. You think you can stand here and play protector when half of Atlanta been laughing at you for years?" The gasp from the crowd was louder this time, sharper, roar. Even the producers, who had been quietly thrilled with the footage, looked uneasy. This wasn't just drama anymore, this was venom, and once it aired, there would be no going back. Spice stepped forward again, her voice desperate now. "Enough. This ain't about Kirk. This ain't about Mendicis. This is about y'all too. And if you don't stop, y'all gonna burn everything down." But it was too late. The fire had already spread. Fans on social media were dissecting every second, turning still images into memes, spinning rumors into supposed facts. Headlines started appearing within minutes. Yandi accuses Rashida of betrayal, friendship over. Kirk explodes backstage after Yandi mentions Jasmine Mendici's name, dragged into chaos at Love and Hip Hop Atlanta taping. By the time the cast left the venue, Atlanta was buzzing like a hive struck by a stick. Outside, paparazzi crowded the sidewalks, their cameras flashing like lightning as they hurled questions. "Yandy, is it true you think Rashida betrayed you? Rashida, are you secretly close with Jasmine? Kirk, are you staying in the marriage for the cameras? Mendicis, where do you stand in all this?" The chaos was relentless. The women ducked into their cars, but even behind tinted windows, the noise of betrayal followed them. Fans screamed from the sidewalks, some shouting support, others hurling insults. It felt less like leaving a show and more like leaving a battlefield. Back at the hotel later that night, the divide grew deeper. Rashida locked herself in her room with Kirk, pacing furiously while trying to piece together what had just happened. "They think they can paint me as the villain," she muttered, her voice sharp. "But I'm not going down without a fight." Meanwhile, across the city, Yandi sat on the edge of her bed, scrolling through hundreds of comments on her live stream. Some called her brave, some called her messy, but all agreed on one thing: this fight had just changed the course of love and hip-hop forever. And in the middle of it all, Spice poured herself a drink, shaking her head. She knew this was only the beginning. Secrets were out, alliances were broken, and the truth, whatever that was far messier than anyone wanted to admit. The storm that began backstage didn't stop when the cameras turned off. If anything, it grew louder, spreading through the streets of Atlanta like fire chasing dry grass. By the next morning, clips of Yandy screaming at Rashida had already gone viral. Blogs plastered headlines across every platform. Friendship shattered, secrets exposed, and did Rashida betray Yandy for real? Inside her hotel room, Yandy sat by the window, her phone buzzing endlessly. Thousands of notifications lit up her screen, each one heavier than the last. Some messages were supportive, calling her brave for standing up for herself. Others accused her of stirring drama for the cameras. But the ones that stung the most were the ones that painted her as desperate, a woman clinging to a broken friendship that had never been real. She pressed the phone to her chest, her eyes glassy. "I thought we were sisters," she whispered to herself. How could she throw me away like that? Across the city, Rashida was living a nightmare of her own. She sat with Kirk in the Frost household, the air thick with silence. Every time she refreshed her feed, another video popped up, another angle of the fight, another opinion from strangers, dissecting her life. "They don't even know me," she muttered bitterly. "They don't know what I've had to carry." But deep down, she knew the damage was done. The internet didn't care about explanations, it cared about drama, and she had just been painted as the villain of the story. Kirk, meanwhile, was furious. He paced the living room, his voice sharp and restless. "This ain't good for the brand, you know that, right? We worked too hard building Frost Bistro, building your image, and now they out here calling you fake. You let her drag you into this mess." His words were meant to protect, but they cut Rashida like knives. "So now, it's my fault," she snapped, her voice breaking. "You think I wanted this? You think I wanted her to put me on blast like that?" But it wasn't just about Yandy anymore. The fight had cracked open every old wound, and the one name that kept echoing louder than all the rest was Jasmine. Fans online were already speculating. Was Rashida secretly still close with her? Had she forgiven what the world thought was unforgivable? The theories piled up until they no longer looked like rumors but like facts in the eyes of strangers, and nothing spread faster than a story laced with betrayal. Meanwhile, Spice tried to play peacemaker, though even she felt the weight of the chaos. On Instagram Live, she addressed fans directly, her Jamaican accent cutting through the noise. "Me love dem both. Me Sion pick sides. What happened backstage was deeper than the cameras, deeper than the show. But me tellin' you this Atlanta nah go quiet after dis." Her words only stirred the pot further, as fans dissected every syllable, twisting her neutrality into fuel for their arguments. Some claimed she secretly sided with Yandy, others swore she was protecting Rashida. Then came the twist no one expected. Screenshots surfaced alleged text messages between Rashida and an anonymous number, supposedly linked to Jasmine. The messages weren't crystal clear, but they hinted at secret conversations. At a friendship being rekindled in the shadows. Fans flooded Twitter, so Yandy was right all along. Rashida been moving shady. This just proves Jasmine never really left. Rashida slammed her phone down in frustration. "Those are fake," she shouted at Kirk, who stared at the screen with tight lips. But his silence only made things worse. "Why aren't you defending me?" she demanded. Kirk finally looked up, his eyes heavy. "Because I don't even know anymore. Rashida, you've been keeping things from me too." Her jaw dropped, her body trembling. "You really think I'd go behind your back with her? After everything?" Tears finally welled in her eyes, though she refused to let them fall. "You're supposed to be my husband. If you don't believe me, then who will?" While the Frosts battled behind closed doors, Yandy was fighting a different war. She sat with Mendices, her husband, who had been dragged into the drama without warning. He rubbed his temples, his patience thinning. "Why they saying my name now? Why you let them pull me into this?" His voice was low but sharp, the kind of tone that cut deeper than shouting. Yandy threw her hands up. "I didn't let nothing happen. They brought your name up, not me. And if you think I'm just gonna sit there while people act like I'm I had to defend myself." But Mendices wasn't convinced. "You defended yourself by dragging me. By letting them twist my name into this circus. You know what people gonna say? You know how they spin it." His voice carried years of weariness. years of fighting to rebuild his image. And now, with a few careless words, it all felt fragile again. The tension between husband and wife grew heavier. Mirroring the tension between former friends, what had started as a fight between two women had spiraled into a hurricane threatening to swallow everyone in its path. The producers watched with greedy eyes, knowing the footage would guarantee ratings but also knowing they were playing with fire. Outside, Atlanta buzzed like a city under siege. Radio stations dissected the drama on morning shows, fans called in with their theories, and gossip pages refreshed every hour with new angles. Everywhere you turned, it was Yandy versus Rashida, loyalty versus betrayal, truth versus lies, and just when it felt like things couldn't get more explosive, a new video dropped. A fan who had been backstage leaked unseen footage this time of Rashida whispering to Spice minutes before the fight. In the clip, her words were muffled but clear enough to spark chaos. "She's too emotional. I can't deal with her anymore. She brings everything down." The internet lost its mind. Fans accused Rashida of plotting against Yandy long before the fight, while others claimed the clip was taken out of context. Either way, it spread like wildfire. Yandi, watching it unfold, felt her chest tighten. "So it wasn't just in my head," she muttered. "She really been playing me all along." For Rashida, it was another nail in the coffin. She sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering how everything had spiraled so far. She thought about calling Yandy, about explaining, but pride held her back. And so the silence grew, heavier than any words could ever be. The city was divided, the cast was fractured, and the show was dangling on the edge of chaos. The story wasn't over, it was only just beginning. Because if there was one thing everyone knew about Atlanta, it was this: secrets don't stay buried for long.